a very unique event that happened with a high school track star who was being heavily recruited by multiple D1 schools, including Ohio State. At his reveal ceremony, he actually revealed that he was going to go to a historically black college university, and he chose A&T. And I think that's great. I think the way he did it is great, but I know that there's some contention amongst that. What do you guys think?
It was really cool to see it, man. The presentation was really dope. And for those of you who didn't see it, the video's out there. He had 3 major schools lined up, knocked them all down, opened his jacket, and it said North Carolina A&T. So again, the presentation was dope, man. But the meat of this topic and the heart of the matter is him choosing an HBCU over these prestigious D1 colleges. So the discussion is, should we and are we going to see more highly recruited athletes go this route? As far as should we see that, I think we should keep it up to these kids to do whatever their heart desires. Now, as a black man and as black people, of course, we want HBCUs profiles raised. We would love to see HBCUs profit off of black athletes like we do the regular D1 schools. I think that story sounds good in theory, but I don't think it's going to be the reality going down the road. Now, if it happens, cool, but I know this is a track star we're talking about, but I can't help, the first thing I'm thinking about is more basketball and football players going to go this route. And again, just to repeat myself, I just don't see it happening. It would be cool, but I just don't think that would be the reality. And to me, it would have to start with one athlete who's like the number 1, number 2 guy, and it would have to start a wave for that to even think about happening. We'll see.
You essentially took everything I was going to say and then said it. But first and foremost, congratulations to the kid on not going to the school where he had to go, but going to the school where he wanted to go.
Right.
Everybody knows I'm a Tar Heel fan. I hate that other shade of blue. But I will never get upset at a kid who chooses to play for their school, because the bigger picture here is that he was able to pick whatever school he wanted. And I will always appreciate that. On another note, these reveal ceremonies, these commitment ceremonies, they've gotten a little old because it's very redundant.
Yeah.
And so big ups to that kid for doing it the way he did. It was classy. It wasn't too flashy.
It looked like he had
because it appeared that he had chosen Ohio State, and everyone cheered, and then he knocked it down, and it was like, there's a twist.
So I thought that was pretty dope. But
I will say this: it's a little easier for a track star to make that decision because a track athlete, a track and field athlete, the school that he chooses isn't going to affect his professional career as much as a basketball or football player, because you're literally talking money. You are literally talking money. If you're a football player, the difference between going to A&T and Ohio State could be millions of dollars.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Me too.
So when it comes to the 2 money-making sports, you honestly believe that if a kid goes to an HBCU as opposed to we'll go with the D1 school, you think he or she loses out on a significant amount of money?
Absolutely. That's the reason why Daniel Jones went number 6 in the draft, and Dwayne Haskins almost went out of the top 10 because we look at the competition that they play, and there's this narrative that HBCUs don't play the same level of competition that D1 schools, and there's some truth to that in a lot of cases.
Right.
So scouts are going to say, man, look at that guy. He's good. But look who he's playing against. And that's the argument against Daniel Jones.
Right.
Is like, well, he went to Duke, look who he's playing against. So
And I'm also glad you brought this up too, because I think it goes without saying, if you're talented and you're good, somebody will find you. I don't care.
Absolutely.
If you are good, professional scouts will find you. However, there is a difference between getting picked number 10 versus getting picked number 1. Now, if you're an excellent athlete and you're the guy at John C. Smith, and you don't get picked number one because of that school, that affects your money. You get what I'm saying? And to your point, that does make a difference. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't, but
it does.
It's unfortunate.
Like, I wish I had a graphic to see exactly where Steve McNair was picked, because I guarantee you there's somebody who was picked in front of him who didn't deserve to get picked in front of him. Yeah. So there you have it.
Would Jerry Rice be a good one?
Jerry Rice would be excellent.
Jerry Rice,
God, he'd be the best example.
Where did he get drafted?
I don't think Jerry Rice was a top 10 pick. I don't. I think he was 20 something. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But to me, perfect example. He is known by many people will say he's the greatest football player that ever lived. That's an argument for another day. But I guarantee you there's 15 other people that got picked ahead of him only because he went to Mississippi Valley State.
We see it all the time in the NBA. I love I'm a Tar Heels fan, and I love ACC basketball. But come on, how many? I mean, let's look at all the guys that come from in the NBA. They come from power conference schools.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about Kawhi Leonard, who went number 15.
It matters, man.
Yeah. Giannis, he's an overseas guy. He went, late in the draft.
15, 16, something like that.
Yeah, so hopefully the narrative that, well, hey, if you go to a big school, that's all that counts will go away, but I don't think it will. And that's why we may see some hesitation from, high name recruits deciding to go to
and I don't oblige any of these kids to go to HBCUs. Ultimately, I want them to go to where they feel is the most comfortable. I think at some point down the road, I think we will start seeing a shift, because I think too many of us, we look in the now, but if you look back in the day, especially in football, there were a lot of HBCUs that were powerhouses.
Right.
And now SMU isn't a HBCU, but I think they're like the best example, because they're a small school.
Yeah.
I think they were like a Methodist college or something.
Yep.
And before they got hit with a death penalty, like
they were the team.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I have a firm belief that if you're talented, they're gonna find it.
Their 30 for 30 is awesome, by the way.
I was just about to mention that. Great 30 for 30.
I'll give you guys one prime example. Ed Oliver, D tackle out of Houston. He was a consensus 5-star recruit. I want to say he was 12 in the nation coming out of high school, and he could have went to any school that he wanted. Texas Tech, one of them. Texas, one of them. All of those. He really wanted to go to LSU, and he went to Houston. He stayed home because his reason for, I think his older brother was playing there as well. So he stayed there for family reasons. And he became the first ever 5-star recruit to go to a non-Power 5 school.
Wow.
And this year, he just got drafted number 10th overall.
Yeah.
So I firmly believe that if you do good, they're gonna find you. And we could talk about, like, I got plenty of examples, but I think that's the best one, Ed Oliver. So go with that.
Cool.